The 4 drips kept time like a metronome. Emily counted them to drown out the silence, the kind that followed diagnoses, the hollow click of scissors shearing her hair, the way even her mother's voice had retreated into phone calls that ended too soon. Radiation carved her body into something brittle, but her hands remained stubborn. Between treatments, she folded origami swans from hospital pamphlets, their wings creased with lyrics she'd scribbled in margins. "Don't drop the beat. I'm still here." Jennifer Lopez wasn't real to her, not then. Just a voice, a pulse, a woman who'd once sung about dancing on tabletops while wearing a dress made of mirrors. Emily wrote to her because the alternative, writing to God, to the void, to the insurance adjuster who denied her claim, felt like surrender. The letters were raw, ink smudged by saline drips. "I miss the weight of my hair," she confessed in one. Not the way it looked, but how it held the rain. She never sealed them. Instead, she tucked each swan into the chapel's prayer box, where the chaplain's teenage daughter later found them and posted one on Instagram. "Whoever you are," the caption read, "your swans could fly." Liam came to her on a Thursday, his uniform streaked with soot from a 3-alarm fire downtown. He smelled of ash and spearmint gum, his hands trembling faintly as he smoothed her blanket. Firefighters weren't supposed to shake. They'd met years ago at a karaoke bar. Her butchering "Let's Get Loud," him buying her a tequila shot to stop the crime against music. Now, he brought her popsicles stolen from a nurse's freezer and read aloud tabloid headlines about J.Lo's latest breakup. "See," he'd say, grinning. "Celebs cry over dudes named Chad. You're tougher than all of them." When remission came, it felt less like victory and more like stepping into a world that had moved on without her. Her job at the elementary school had been filled by a substitute with a TikTok following. Her savings account gasped on life support. And Liam, sweet, smoke-scented Liam, had maxed his credit cards, keeping her afloat. They moved into his late grandmother's ranch house, its walls papered with floral prints from the 70s. Emily took shifts at the drive-thru coffee hut, her scarred throat straining through customer service cheer. At night, she traced the numbers in her medical bills. $200,000, a sum that echoed like a judge's gavel. The wedding was supposed to be small, a backyard affair, with folding chairs borrowed from the VFW hall and a bouquet of grocery store carnations dyed burgundy. But Emily's bridesmaids, nurses from the oncology ward, insisted on miracles. They smuggled in a second-hand lace gown, altered it to hide her port scar, and baked a 3-tiered vanilla cake laced with peach schnapps. "You survived citrullination," joked Mara, the charge nurse who'd held Emily's hand during her first biopsy. A wedding's just another party with paperwork. Then the RSVP. It arrived in a cream envelope, the kind Emily associated with jury duty or auditions. The return address was blurred, the postmark from Los Angeles. Inside, a single line, "Guest, +1. Gift, priceless." She almost tossed it. Prank, she thought. Or worse, a creditor's taunt. But Liam pinned it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like Texas. "Maybe it's Oprah," he said, kissing her temple. "Or Beyoncé. But she'd bring hot sauce." The morning of the wedding, Emily woke to rain. Not the gentle kind, but a thunderous downpour that flooded the backyard and sent the rented canopy skidding into the neighbor's azaleas. Mara arrived with an industrial fan and a mantra. "This is fine. We're fine." By noon, the sun emerged, steam rising from the grass like phantom dancers. A black SUV idled down the block, unnoticed. As Emily zipped her gown, the lace catching on her dry skin, a stranger appeared in the mirror behind her. A woman in a tailored blazer, her face obscured by sunglasses and a silk scarf. "Florist assistant," she said, voice smooth as a radio host's. "We're reinforcing the arch." Her perfume lingered after she left, jasmine and ambition. Later, Emily would recall how the woman's gloves were flawless, no trace of soil. How she'd hummed "Waiting for Tonight" while rearranging roses. But in that moment, there was only the drum of her own pulse, the way Liam's eyes welled when she walked toward him, the minister's Bible trembling in the breeze. They vowed forever under a sky still bruised with clouds. No one noticed the SUV's passenger, face pressed to the window, mouthing the words "I do." The reception buzzed with the kind of chaos unique to small towns. Anti-gossip colliding with overcooked brisket, children darting between table legs like minnows, and a DJ who'd already played Sweet Caroline twice. Emily floated through it all, her hand fused to Liam's, their palms slick with sweat and champagne. She barely tasted the cake, though Mara swore it was divine. Her eyes kept drifting to the black SUV parked beyond the fence, its tinted windows reflecting the sunset like polished obsidian. The bridesmaids moved in a hive-mind rhythm. Mara adjusted Emily's veil for the 10th time, her fingers lingering near the lace collar hiding the scar. Jess, the oncology nurse with a side gig as a wedding singer, whispered urgently into her phone near the punch bowl. No, the wireless mic. Yes, the gold one. When Liam asked why the dessert table had a locked cooler labeled, "Do not open until performance," Jess shrugged. Fire code. Frosting explosives. Rumors rippled. Old Mrs. Pete claimed she'd seen a woman in Chanel sunglasses buying out the Walmart's entire stock of votive candles. The bartender swore a man with an earpiece had tested the tap water for toxins. And Tommy, Liam's rookie probie, insisted the SUV's license plate read J.Lo 2NV, a detail everyone dismissed as bourbon-fueled delirium. Unseen, the woman from the bridal suite, now in a staff polo and cap, directed a crew to hang fairy lights in precise, mathematical spirals. She rejected Lily's, to funeral, retuned the DJ's speakers to a frequency that made the silverware hum, and slipped a USB drive into the sound system labeled backup playlist. Her gloves remained pristine. Across the country, in a Los Angeles high-rise, a lawyer with a Harvard pin on her lapel finalized paperwork. Emails zapped to the hospital's billing department. Debt forgiven. Patient number 11471. Wire transfer confirmed. The new wing's blueprints glowed on a screen, its lobby adorned with a mural of origami swans mid-flight. A sticky note on the desk read, "Tell the architect, more glitter." Back at the ranch, dusk bled into the sky. Emily's laughter faltered as she glimpsed the USB drive's reflection in a champagne flute. J.Lo Vegas 2023 scrawled in Sharpie. Liam tightened his grip on her waist, his firefighter instincts prickling at the room's charged air. He'd spent years reading smoke patterns, sensing heat through walls. This was a different kind of burn. The DJ vanished abruptly, replaced by a roadie in a black hoodie. Guitars tuned, a drumstick tapped, and the opening chords of Waiting for Tonight thrummed, but lower, slower, a heartbeat stripped of its bravado. The crowd stilled. Emily's breath hitched. Somewhere, a car door clicked open. The opening chords hung in the air like a held breath, lower and slower than any version the radio had ever played. A hush pooled over the crowd, broken only by the clink of a champagne flute set too hastily on a table. The roadie in the black hoodie stepped back, vanishing into shadows as the stage lights dimmed to a deep indigo. From the periphery, the woman in the staff polo emerged, her cap now gone, sunglasses swapped for a sequin veil that caught the fairy lights like fractured stars. Her gloves, still pristine, gripped the microphone with the ease of someone who'd held 1,000 hearts in her hands. Liam's firefighter instincts flared, his pulse sinking to the bass line, thrumming underfoot. Emily's fingers tightened around his arm, her engagement ring biting into his skin. The veil obscured the singer's face, but her voice, smoke and honey, edged with a Bronx rasp, rippled through the room. "You've got to give it up." The crowd stirred. A teenage cousin shrieked, "Oh my God, it's a J.Lo impersonator." Laughter flickered, uncertain. The woman laughed back, the sound rich and familiar. As she peeled off one glove, a diamond bracelet glinted beneath, its stones throwing prismatic cuts across the floral wallpaper. Emily froze. The scent hit her first, jasmine, sharp and expensive, the same as in the bridal suite. Memories collided. The origami swans, the SUV's obsidian windows, the USB drive labeled J.Lo Vegas 2023. Her medical bracelet trembled against her wrist as the singer's free hand rose to the veil. The reveal wasn't a pull, but a drop. Silk pooled at the woman's feet, and the room erupted. Phones flew up, a forest of glowing screens. Liam's champagne flute shattered on the hardwood, shards catching the light like misplaced confetti. Jennifer Lopez stood there, not the distant icon from Spotify playlists, but flesh and sweat and smudged eyeliner, her smile a dare. "This one's for the fighters," she said, and the band exploded into Let's Get Loud. Not the studio version, but a raw, brass-heavy rendition that shook the ranch house's foundation. Aunts in pastel suits hip-checked nephews in bow ties. Mrs. Pete's dentures slipped as she twerked. Tommy, bourbon abandoned, crowd surfed toward the dessert table, screaming, "I told y'all." Emily swayed, vertigo tugging at her. J.Lo's gaze locked onto hers, a comet's trail of recognition. She jumped off the stage, heels kicking up grass stains, and pressed a plaque into Emily's hands. A slab of polished oak engraved with the unbroken notes wing, its border a frieze of folded paper swans. Beneath it, embossed in gold, "Debts paid, dances earned." Liam's laugh broke first, a disbelieving snort. You crashed our wedding." J.Lo winked, sweat glistening at her hairline. "Honey, love's supposed to crash. Didn't they teach you that in fire school?" She nodded to the plaque. "Check the fine print." Emily's thumbs found the engraving's edge, a tiny E+L hidden in the swirl of a wing. Her knees buckled. Liam caught her, his hands, callous from hauling hoses, gentle from holding her through chemo, cradling the plaque between them. The music swelled, guests howling the chorus off key, as J.Lo reclaimed the mic and launched into on the floor, her hips etching the air into exclamation points. Outside, the black SUV idled, its passenger window cracked. A lawyer in a Harvard pin watched the chaos, thumbs tapping a text. Stage 2 complete. Initiate viral rollout. By the final refrain, the groom's tuxedo jacket was gone, his sleeves rolled to reveal the scar from the warehouse fire that nearly took him. Emily's veil tangled in Liam's watch as they spun, the world a blur of fairy lights and smartphone flashes. Somewhere, a child's origami swan, lifted by the bass's tremor, floated toward the rafters, wings outstretched, finally airborne. The video hit TikTok at 11:37 p.m., just as the last guest stumbled into Uber rides clutching doggy bag cake. Shot vertically by Liam's cousin Deb, it was shaky, backlit by fairy lights, and punctuated by her scream whispering, "That's Jennifer freaking Lopez," every 3 seconds. By dawn, it had 10 million views. By noon, it was a CNN cheering, "J.Lo's wedding crash sparks debt forgiveness movement." The hashtag unbroken notes trended alongside memes of Tommy mid-crowd surf, his face a pixelated scream of vindication. Emily woke to her phone seizing, texts from numbers she didn't recognize, Venmo donations from strangers in Dubai, a DM from Oprah's assistant. Liam found her in the bathtub, still in her wrinkled wedding dress, scrolling through comments. "Look," she whispered, showing him a tweet. "If J.Lo can crash a wedding, maybe my student loans will get Beyonce D away." He handed her a coffee spiked with bourbon, the same flask he'd carried through her chemo nights. "We're the weirdest charity case ever," he said, but his thumb brushed the plaque on the sink, the unbroken notes wing, its swans gleaming under the bathroom light. At the hospital, administrators scrambled. The ER waiting room buzzed with reporters. A local news anchor interviewed Mara live from the parking lot, her nurse's scrubs swapped for a blazer borrowed from the gift shop. "This wing," Mara declared, channeling Emmy-winning gravitas, "isn't just about medicine. It's about the playlists that get us through the night." Behind her, construction crews hoisted steel beams etched with musical notes. The architect's glitter mandate fulfilled via prismatic glass tiles. J.Lo's team moved like a covert op. A sound engineer remixed the wedding performance into a clean track, stripping Tommy's howls, but keeping the crack of Liam's shattered flute. Spotify listed it as "Let's Get Loud, Unbroken Notes Remix," the first dance edit appended with Emily's vows. By week's end, it topped wedding charts, its saxophone riffed the new sound of synchronized bouquet tosses. Emily returned to the oncology ward, not as a patient but a nurse, her ID badge clipped where her port had been. Her first shift, she found a girl named Sophia in room 214 folding origami swans from Get Well Soon cards. "They're for J.Lo," Sophia said, her four-pole wrapped in fairy lights. "Mom says she fixes things." Emily taught her the sharper crease, the one that made wings resilient. "She doesn't fix," Emily murmured. "She just turns up the volume." Liam's firehouse became a pilgrimage site. Tourists took selfies with Engine 42, its ladder now adorned with a decal of the plaque swans. His captain grumbled about dignity, but secretly ordered crew shirts embroidered with FDNY's loudest. At night, Liam traced the scar on Emily's collarbone, their bedroom lit by the glow of her phone. Another donor's message, another story of survival set to a J.Lo beat. The SUV reappeared once, parked outside the hospital during Emily's lunch break. The lawyer inside wore the same Harvard pin, her tablet displaying blueprints for wings in 6 other cities. "Philly next," she told someone via AirPod. "Find a couple who met during a blackout." J.Lo loves a theme. By the fundraiser gala, Emily could walk in heels without wincing. She stood before the Wings donor wall, her reflection warped by the glass names. "Every in memory of, and for my wife," etched above a tiny musical note. Liam spun her gently to Waiting for Tonight, his palm a steady metronome at her spine. Cameras flashed, but all she heard was Sophia's laugh from the pediatric floor above, high and bright, slicing through the quiet. Somewhere in Malibu, Jennifer Lopez scrolled the gala photos, her thumb hovering over a shot of Emily and Liam mid-spin. She zoomed in on the plaque's engraving, the hidden E+L, and smiled. On the patio, her mother hummed Celia Cruz while watering orchids. "Mommy," J.Lo called, "remember those letters you made me write to Abuela's nurses?" The wind chimes answered first, their song a promise, a loop, a beat that refused to end. Rain lashed against the hospital windows, turning the unbroken notes wing into a kaleidoscope of refracted neon. Streetlights bending through prismatic glass, from monitors blinking in time to the storm's arrhythmia. Emily moved through the pediatric ward like a ghost tuned to a different frequency, her stethoscope cold against the skin of children who saw her not as a nurse but a myth. The J.Lo lady. They called her, though she'd never mentioned the wedding. They knew anyway. TikTok had made her a footnote in someone else's legend. Sophia's room glowed like a nightclub, her four-pole wrapped in dollar store fairy lights that threw shimmering scales onto the ceiling. Leukemia had taken her hair, but not her defiance. She folded origami swans with a surgeon's precision, her fingers steady despite the tremor in her wrists. "This one's for Jennifer," she said, handing Emily a swan dipped in glitter nail polish. "Tell her I want a duet. Or a pony." Emily tucked the swan into her scrub's pocket, its wings sharp against her thigh. She recognized the desperation in Sophia's bravado, the same she'd once poured into letters. At the nurse's station, she found a package addressed to the Swan Girl in blocky Sharpie. Inside, a sequin microphone pillow and a note. "For the next duet. Pony pending." Gel, Sophia's laughter rang through the ward, bouncing off the mural of paper birds, as Emily pinned the note to the bulletin board. Someone had already scribbled, "We are loud," across J.Lo's signature. 3 time zones away, Jennifer Lopez stood on a Malibu balcony, the Pacific snarling beneath her. Her mother's wind chimes clashed with the gala still buzzing inside, a fundraiser for a clinic in East L.A. She scrolled through photos Sophia's mother had tagged her in. The glitter swan propped on a hospital tray, Emily's shadow a blurred guardian in the background. The last time she'd visited her own mother's nurses, she'd brought signed CDs and autograph headshots, tokens that felt hollow when their eyes lingered on her diamond Rolex. "You think they want stuff?" Her mother had snapped, watering orchids with rainwater. "They want proof someone's listening." The memory clung as she stepped back inside, heels sinking into cream carpet. A donor waved a check, bragging about his wife's inspirational mastectomy. J.Lo's smile stayed camera-ready, but her fingers curled around the swan in her clutch, Sophia's latest, smuggled in by her assistant. The paper cut her palm, a sting sharper than critique. At 2 a.m., Emily jolted awake to Sophia's code blue. The crash cart wheels screamed down the hallway, monitors flatlining into a drone. She ran, the swan in her pocket tearing through the fabric, glitter trailing like breadcrumbs. The code team moved in a brutal ballet, but it was Sophia's hand Emily gripped, cold, the origami crane she'd been folding still crimped in her fist. "Play it," Sophia mouthed, no air left to speak. Emily fumbled for her phone, cued "Let's Get Loud," and pressed it to Sophia's chest. The bass line thudded against the silence, the remix now a war cry. A nurse shot her a look, but the cardiologist barked, "Keep it going," her pressures ticking up. They stabilized her to the bridge, Sophia's fingers twitching as if conducting an orchestra only she could hear. When the room emptied, Emily collapsed in the hallway, glitter and dried blood crusted under her nails. Liam found her there, his firehouse shirt reeking of smoke, and folded her into arms that still knew the shape of her fragility. "You're okay," he lied, because she's okay would take years to mean it. Dawn came grudgingly. Sophia slept, a new swan taped to her four-pole. For Emily, scrawled in wobbly cursive. On the roof, Emily watched the city yawn awake, ambulances weaving through traffic like discordant notes. Liam's pager buzzed. Another fire, another life balanced on the edge of a flame. He kissed her forehead, his lips chapped from breathing too much air that didn't belong to him, and left her with the skyline. In Malibu, J.Lo stared at the swan in her palm, its edges smudged with Sophia's glitter and what might have been blood. Her assistant hovered, clipboard in hand. The Philly Wings breaking ground next week. They found the couple, high school sweethearts, reunited after a hurricane. "Cancel the Today Show spot," J.Lo said. "Give me a flight to Texas." The jet landed at midnight. She didn't go to the hospital. Instead, she sat in the SUV outside Emily's house, watching shadows move behind drawn blinds. A figure stepped onto the porch. Liam, shirtless, a dish towel slung over his shoulder. He stared into the dark, as if sensing the weight of the gaze on him, then went inside. On the dashboard, Sophia's swan glowed under streetlight. J.Lo's phone lit up with a text from her mother. "Did you listen?" Rain began again, soft this time. Somewhere, a child's laughter slipped through an open window, tangled with a radio playing Waiting for Tonight. The hospital courtyard shimmered under a tapestry of fairy lights, their glow softened by the late autumn haze. Paper swans dangled from oak branches, their wings gilded by the setting sun, each crease a testament to hands that had folded pain into art. Emily stood at the edge of the crowd, her nurse's scrubs swapped for a champagne-colored dress, its sleeves loose enough to hide the scars Sophia's crisis had etched into her composure. Liam's hand rested at the small of her back, a grounding weight, his firehouse ring catching the light as he nodded to donors whose names he'd forget by morning. The fundraiser buzzed with curated warmth, a jazz trio reworking on the floor into a bossa nova daydream, waiters gliding with hors d'oeuvres shaped like musical notes. Sophia weaved through the crowd, her bald head adorned with a tiara of LED stars, clutching a swan-shaped clutch purse J.Lo's team had sent. Her remission was too new to trust, but her laughter, sharp and bright, cut through the murmur of philanthropists. When she pressed a glitter-streaked swan into Emily's palm, the specks still clung to her cuticles, tiny constellations from the night she'd almost slipped away. Across the courtyard, a woman in a charcoal blazer watched, her Harvard pin glinting. The lawyer's tablet glowed with blueprints for the Philly Wing, Hurricane's Sweethearts Memorial, its lobby mural a tempest of sheet music and rain. She eyed the exit, calculating the hour until her red-eye to Pennsylvania, but lingered as the jazz trio faded into silence. A single guitar chord hummed through the speakers, acoustic and unadorned. Heads turned toward the makeshift stage, empty save for a microphone wrapped in Sophia's fairy lights. The first note of Waiting for Tonight spilled raw, voice cracking on the lower register, and J.Lo emerged not from the wings but the crowd, her sequin blazer traded for a linen shirt, hair loose and unprocessed. No spotlight followed her. She stood half in shadow, strumming a weathered Gibson as if it were a relic from her Bronx days. Emily's breath caught. This wasn't the J.Lo who'd crashed weddings or dominated Vegas, but someone quieter, her mother's wind chimes woven into the song's bridge. Liam stiffened, then laughed, a low, rasping sound as recognition dawned. The lawyer's thumbs froze mid-text, her screen casting a blue halo on the grass. Sophia reached the stage first, her sneakers silent on the steps. J.Lo knelt, still singing, and slid the microphone into the girl's hands. Their voices tangled, professional polish and pediatric rasp. On the chorus, "I want to be with you," the crowd swayed, uncertain, until Emily stepped forward, her palms upturned as if testing for rain. Liam followed, his firefighter's stride softened by the realization that this moment, too, was a kind of rescue. They danced where the lawn met the sidewalk, asphalt gritty under Emily's heels. J.Lo's lyrics unraveled into hums, the guitar strings whispering secrets only survivors could parse. The lawyer snapped a photo, not for the press, but for herself, the lens capturing Liam's scarred forearm, circling Emily's waist, Sophia's tiara flickering like a heartbeat, J.Lo's bare foot tapping time on the stage's edge. Later, when the night hushed and the guests dissolved, Emily found J.Lo alone by the mural, tracing the outline of a paper swan with her thumb. Up close, she looked smaller, the years etching her face in ways no filter could blur. "You came back," Emily said. "Mothers have rules," J.Lo replied, nodding to the wind chimes clinking above them, their song a fragile counterpoint to the city's groan. "Yours, Mine, Sophia's." She pressed a flash drive into Emily's hand. Unbroken notes. "Live at the Wing. Its casing scratched, its contents unmastered. Play it loud enough, and the quiet parts don't hurt as bad." On the drive home, Liam fiddled with the radio until the demo track spilled through the speakers. J.Lo's laugh caught mid-verse, Sophia's off-key ad-lib preserved like a fossil. Emily watched the hospital shrink in the rear view, its windows blazing like 100 folded swans set aflame. In Malibu, J.Lo's mother rinsed champagne flutes in sink water flecked with orchid petals. The TV murmured a recap of the gala. Did Lopez's low-key set signal career fatigue? But she hummed louder, her melody older, truer, a lullaby from San Juan. And somewhere over Philadelphia, the lawyer slept, her dreams scored by a storm's crescendo, a couple's reunion, a wing waiting to be named. The dance never ended. It only changed time signatures.